So I think the important thing to note is this: the phrase "your practice" is something that some people may think like, I don't have my own practice. I work for someone else, and I'm actually now. I used to work for a big law firm, and now I'm an in-house counsel. And the thing that I think is important for everyone to think about in their career is you are your practice. It doesn't matter whether you are at a 700-person law firm headquartered in New York, or you're a sole practitioner, or you're a government lawyer. Every time you are your practice. And so I think it's important to note that you take your practice with you everywhere you go. And so some of the things that will be talked about today by Doug and Fiona are really thinking about you as part of your practice. So thinking about some of the tips that you can manage yourself on. So I think it's important is maybe you might think this isn't what relevant to me. I think it really is. So I'm going to quickly introduce our panelists here. Fiona is a graduate of Golden Gate University Law School, and she initially began working for Washington Mutual, and then transitioned into open her own firm in 2009, focusing on nonprofit and foreclosure law. And she's also very active in public service and a very active leader in the Bar Association throughout the state. So hopefully she'll talk a little bit more about that today. And Doug Reiser is a friend of mine, and he is a construction lawyer and graduated from law school in beautiful Louisiana, and he is also a very active member of the Bar Association, and he's one of those lawyers who's really taken some time to get involved in the community. And I think it's important. He now works on a blog called Construction Law Blog. Is that right?
Builders Council.
Builders Council. I was way off. But I think both these two are great examples of people who can. I'm curious to ask you guys before you start, how long did it take you guys to get, we'll call it comfortable, doing what you do?
I'm still getting comfortable, so I think it's an ongoing process.
I had to kind of get comfortable as immediately as possible, so still getting comfortable, yes. I mean, you're never 100% comfortable, but you can do it. You can do it quickly if you need to.
All right, take it away.
All right, guys, my name is Doug Reiser, and my information's at the top, and I want to say that first because I am a young lawyer like you. Most of you guys probably saw me come in and you were like, this guy's really speaking. Come on, he's got to be like 23, 24. I get that a lot, you know, which is why sometimes I keep a little scruffle on my face. I have an excuse this month because it's Movember, supporting cancer for men. So every November 1st, I shave my entire face and I let it grow out for the end of the month. So I have a little bit of an excuse for it. But otherwise, it's just kind of my youthful savviness. So first thing I'm going to say is actually, Fiona and I are here to speak about resources for your practice, okay? And it should apply, hopefully, to everybody, regardless of what type of work you're doing. But I already have a mistake, so first lesson of the day, lawyers make mistakes. The bottom of it says managing your persona and public image. It should really say both of our things, because we're talking about two different things today. We're going to talk about managing your business, your private business, and your public image. And I don't know about you guys, but for me, being a lawyer was never changing myself overnight. I didn't feel like when I took that oath that all of a sudden I had to just break down who I was and become a completely different person. And one of the, you guys asked this question, lifestyles of practice constraints. I'm going to try to get back to it at the end of this because I do want to talk about it. But this is an old sketch from Saturday Night Live. I don't know how many of you guys actually remember this. I barely remember this because my father made me watch Saturday Night Live when I was like 3 years old. But this was Phil Hartman, and he was the Caveman Lawyer. And before Geico had cavemen, and before Encino Man had cavemen, there was the Caveman Lawyer, and it was Phil Hartman on Saturday Night Live. And, you know, he dressed in fancy clothes. He drove a sexy car. He had all the latest in phone technology. Look at that thing. And, but his tagline was always, hey, I'm just a caveman. And I say that to you guys today because, you know, becoming a lawyer isn't reinventing yourself, per se. You don't have to, okay? You put on this cloak of professionalism, okay, and you live within the guidelines that we're going to teach you today, and you can still be yourself. So some of the differences, and after I'm done with this introduction, I'm going to sit down so Fiona and I can try to keep this as casual as possible with you guys. But I did want to kind of introduce what being a lawyer was to me. The 5 things that I had to think about when I took that oath for the first time. And the first thing was becoming a public figure. In law school, no one knew who I was. was just another law student. I didn't put anything out. I wasn't representing clients. I wasn't filing public records. I wasn't speaking at events for sure. When you become a lawyer, you're going to have a public face. People are going to know you. Even if you hide in an office and do mostly transactional things, you're almost certain to notarize the document or file some public record. It's going to happen, and your name is going to be attached to something that people can find. So you're going to have a public image, and you need to harness that and make it, work to your advantage. Second of all, you're going to be scrutinized. You're going to scrutinize yourself. You just listen to Dan talk about some of the inner workings of being a lawyer, and it's difficult. You're going to scrutinize yourself daily. You're going to be scrutinized by your coworkers, your bosses. You're going to be scrutinized by your clients. You're going to be scrutinized by the bar association. We have rules. We have to live by them. And that's number 3, complying with ethical concerns. You guys in law school, we had the code of conduct, and so you got a little taster of it, and that's nice. But you're going to be doing so much more in the practice of law that you're really going to have to learn the RPC and know it like the back of your hand. Because everything that you do daily, and we'll talk about this more at length later on when we talk about technology especially, things that you do today probably have ethical implications, and you need to concern yourself with those things. Managing client interest. Your job is to be an advocate for your client's best interest, okay? Subject to ethical restraints. But you need to do what you can to make sure that your client is happy and that they are protected. You're dealing with criminal law, you're dealing with their personal freedom. Family law, you're dealing with their family. And a lot of civil issues, you're dealing with their finances. And in some cases, with me, I deal with contractors that are saying, if you don't get me paid, I'm bankrupt. So you have to manage those issues. And lastly, you're running a business. I mean, what we do is we provide a service for payment. It's a business. You got to think about billing and accounting. You got to think about management of people. And you got to think about your customers. So those are 5 things to think about when you become a lawyer. And really what we want you guys to take home today is to just start slow. Know that these things are issues that you're going to have to deal with in the future, okay? But today, if you walk out here and you say, hey, I'm a lawyer. I'm going to manage a private business, and I'm going to manage my public persona, we'll be happy. And so that's what we're going to do today. We can give you guys a few tools to work with to help you every day run your business and manage your public image. And that's what we're going to try to do today. And Fiona's going to start you guys on resources for managing your practice.
Okay, so I'm Fiona Cox, and was mentioned in our introduction. I first started my law practice working for Washington Mutual, and I was laid off when Washington Mutual crashed, and I wasn't really sure what I was going to get into next. But because the economy was so bad, I decided to start my own practice. And I wanted to let you guys know that I worked pretty closely with Dan Crystal at the WSBA, and he is a fantastic resource. So if you guys ever need any help, please don't hesitate to go to him and get signed up for those classes. They're really fantastic. And not only just because Dan is there, but also you meet other attorneys, and it sort of broadens your group of people that you're part of, and you can share resources for job hunting. So yeah, I just wanted to mention that. Because of working for Washington Mutual and my prior career to being a lawyer, I was an IT professional and I worked for a large corporation. I have kind of the dual perspective of working in a corporate environment and working for myself. I've also worked in a small law firm before I went to law school. So the only piece of experience I'm really missing is working for a large law firm, but I've heard plenty about that. So I know you guys have already answered this question, but I just wanted to get a feel for how many people are going into solo practice? No one?
Has anyone considered it?
Okay.
There we go.
And what about large practice? Large firm? No one? Okay. Small firm? And corporate? Okay. So before I get started, I just want to remind you that anything that we say today, please make sure that you are responsible for making sure that you know the RPC. So if we don't cover stuff, make sure that you check out the booklet. It's really good, the course book that you guys have. And remember, it's your responsibility to stay compliant, just in case we miss stuff, because we don't have a lot of time. Okay, let's get started with these slides. The overview. Okay, I'm going to talk about office staff. How many people have managed other people? Couple. Actually, quite a few. Okay, and how many people have managed an office or a business? Okay, so you've got some experience. I think that managing a law practice is pretty similar to managing any other kind of business. You have to be aware of the rules and regulations for operating a business, and that applies to any business. Depending on your location, you have to not only follow the rules that apply to lawyers, but you have to follow the city rules and the state rules in terms of how they apply to business. Do people have good ideas on how to develop relationships with staff? People who've had their own businesses. No one has any idea? Okay, well, what about developing relationships? How have you developed relationships with people you've been in law school with? No one wants to? Yeah, great.
Well, having been a legal assistant, I think we appreciate...
We're actually bringing a microphone, so. Thank you.
I think for staff, appreciating their work goes a long way, and just saying thank you, that's awesome, you know, because a lot of times staff feel unappreciated, so.
Right, that's a great idea, yeah.
Also, as a former legal assistant and someone who also managed legal assistants for a short period, really treating them with respect and explaining the reason for decisions instead of just telling them this is the way it has to be. Basically treating them like thinking human beings who are more equals than subordinates was really important.
Right, right. You don't want to get into a law firm and think that, you know, because you're a lawyer and you have staff working for you, that there's now this status differential. And I mean, your staff could have been working in the legal field for much longer than you have. Probably they have. And they have a great and better idea of what should be happening probably than you do. So just look at them as your equals, and you know, it's a sharing and collaborative relationship. Some other ideas are to be a good listener, and also to find out what hobbies people in your office are into, and share your hobbies. I mean, you want to develop that relationship, and one of the ways of building trust is to find out what people are interested in, to share yourself. I know Dan talked about being vulnerable, and that's part of building relationships. One of the topics that's come up quite a bit in the last year or so, I've been to a couple conferences, is issues or just being aware of the generation gap. I think that we have about 4 generations in the workplace right now, and so that can provide a richness to your work, but it can also be a point of consternation. You know, the younger generations typically, you know, stereotypically, are much more advanced with technology and have an easier understanding of how technology works, and are more facile with Blackberries and computers and whatnot. And you would think that maybe older generations aren't that knowledgeable, but I've been really surprised. I know attorneys who are in their 60s and 70s who are more knowledgeable about technology than I am. And there are younger attorneys than me who are really not into technology at all. They can't stand it. And this applies to work ethic as well. I was at a conference last year where I met an attorney who only he only accesses his email via one of his assistants. So he never personally writes email. His assistant writes all of the email for him.
I know a lot of lawyers like that.
Yeah, at 5 o'clock, he's off the clock, and he never checks his email. He doesn't even have a computer at home. He has a cell phone, but he doesn't have email coming to it. So, and the weekends are his own. But when he's at work, he's fully at work. So there's a huge discrepancy between the kinds of it's not really work ethic, it's the style. I know another attorney who has a solo practice, and he's a one-man show, and his cell phone is on 24 hours a day. He responds to clients within 5 or 10 minutes. And I think it depends on the expectations that you set up with your clients, and what kind of a law practice you have too. In some practices, it's a lot easier to shut down at 5 o'clock and go home for the weekend. In others, you have to be available to your clients, especially in high-stress situations. One of the best resources for one of the best resources for attorneys or other attorneys. When I started at Washington Mutual, I didn't really know that, and I worked in a small group. I worked in purchasing, which wasn't part of the legal department, and we had 5 attorneys. Even though Washington Mutual had hundreds of attorneys, I only knew 5 other attorneys, and we sort of tended to hang out in this very tight clique. We were also mostly women, so that helped. And when I got laid off, I realized I hadn't really developed a network out there. And having gone to law school in another state, there wasn't really anyone for me to fall back on or to talk to. And, as people in that small group started to get jobs elsewhere, and I was sort of, not sure what I was going to do, I really found that I needed to reach out and find other attorneys to talk to. So take the opportunity when you're at a CLE or a conference or a situation like this, take the opportunity just to talk to at least 1 or 2 other attorneys, exchange contact information. There's no pressure to ever get in contact with that person again, but just keeping track of them. You never know how that might help you in the future and what questions they might be able to help you answer. To that end, and Dan Crystal helped me figure this out, it's a great idea to keep a networking log. Networking is the way that most people get their jobs these days, and a networking log can just be as simple as having the name of the person that you've met. Even if they're not an attorney, you never know where your next referral is going to come from if you're in solo practice or your job opportunity. So their name, maybe their phone number, and the time and the place that you met them. And I always try to add at least one personal detail so that, if I meet up with them again, I can, seem like I'm a little bit knowledgeable, not like we're meeting for the first time again. And another place you can do that if you don't want to keep a networking log, which for me, I just had an Excel spreadsheet, is your contacts book in your email application. And you can do the same type of thing, just the type of attorney they are, the job that they have, and some personal details. And just as an example, I was at a conference about a year ago, and I saw the name tag of a woman that I recognized her name. I didn't recognize her at all, but I recognized her name. I think I know that person. And, I was able to just look at my cell phone, and I had the time and place that we met and some personal details. And so, during one of our breaks, I went up to her and I said, "Hi, Amy, how's it going?" And I was able to reference the personal details. And she obviously had a better memory than me because she remembered my name and she remembered, some personal information about me. But it was really useful, and it's great if you can do that. And also, in my practice, 100% of my referrals come from other people. I don't get any of my clients through advertising. So developing those relationships has really been worthwhile for me. And I've learned along the way how to do that. I know Dan mentioned joining committees or sections. That's another great way of meeting other attorneys, especially in other practices or areas of law. If you can go to a couple CLEs, you know, these brown bag lunches where it's not too expensive, and you can just do the same thing, you know, exchange business cards with 1 or 2 attorneys, then you start really building your network. And some other resources that are available are, you know, the WSBA. I don't know how familiar people are with their website, but the more you look at it, the more you realize what a wonderful resource we have. Just for an example, you know, we have free online legal research with CaseMaker. The lawyer directory is really helpful. I use it if somebody talks to me about another attorney and I want to check out what kind of practice they have, or I want to contact them. I can easily look up their number or their email address. And let's get on that. As Dan said, you know, pro bono opportunities. That's a great area to get into. And also, we have listings on the website, job opportunities. Okay. I'm going to quickly go over fee agreements. In Washington, we don't have the requirement to have a written fee agreement unless it's a contingent agreement, but it's a great idea to have a written fee agreement, especially in cases where you know you're going to have ongoing work with a client, and you always have that document to refer back to. And for more information on what the requirements are of fee agreements, you can look at RPC 1.5b. What do you guys think would make a fee agreement reasonable? What do you think the elements would be? Or what would you look at if you try to imagine yourself writing out a fee agreement for a client and it's your first time and you're not really sure what your fee should be? What kind of elements would you look at? Does anybody have any ideas?
Generally, I'm going to the RPCs is based upon your ability in that area, the time commitment's going to make, the general going rate for that kind of litigation or whatever you're doing within the field. Whether there's going to have to be a fee splitting if you're going to consult with somebody else, and having all those things kind of built into your agreement.
Right. The difficulty of the matter.
How do you find out what the going rate is?
I guess that would be coming from just having those connections, going and looking online at the WSBA, finding people that are in that field and willing to reach out and ask, what are you charging? What is kind of, I mean, it's your ability to reach out, I think, in that whole network thing you've been talking about, just not being afraid to ask for help and ask for resources and being able to build off that.
Right. Right, that's great.
And if I could add one thing without promoting a product, because I'm also going to show an ABO page later, but ABO, do you guys all know what ABO is? The lawyer rating service. It's from Seattle. There's lawyer rating services like that, and lawyers have profiles. And if you really wanted to see what other people were charging, go onto their profile. Eric, do you have your rate on your website on the ABO or not?
I'm in-house, so I'm free.
Oh, yeah, you're free now. Well, my rate's on there. So,
mine is too.
And Fiona's is on there. Yeah. So that's a good place to start. You know, that's just one suggestion. You know, those kinds of people put it up there on those ABO profiles because they want clients that are looking for a specific person that has a specific expertise at a specific fee. So.
Yeah, and you can check with other attorneys and find out too what they're charging, and try to. Sometimes it's hard to tell because people value themselves differently. So you might know someone I know someone who's really experienced in her area of law. She's been practicing for 20 years, and she charges less than I do. And it's just really based on how someone values their work and what they're doing. What other kinds of things should be in the fee agreement? Anybody have any ideas? Go ahead.
I think you need to build into that what happens in case there's conflicts that arise, what you're going to do if a situation occurs where you're going to have to go where the money is to be kept, how it's going to be allotted out depending upon what services performed, at what time you'll allot it, the communications it'll be. I mean, the fee agreement, I think, needs to involve a lot of stuff that the client agreement has between you and them, so you can have an understanding going throughout the whole thing that when are you going to charge, what do you expect up front, at what time do you expect payment, all those kind of factors.
Yeah, those are really important. The most important thing is to make sure that it's clear. When I'm setting up a new client, I always talk to them, first of all, about the fees that I charge. And I basically verbally go through with them what they should expect to see in my fee agreement. Another element that's really important is what's going to happen if they don't pay, if they don't make their payments in a timely manner. And in your fee agreement, it's really important to put how regularly you expect to be paid. So whether you have 30 days billing, mine is due upon receipt, so that I know if I don't receive a check from my client within a week or so, that I need to start thinking about what I'm going to do next with that client. It just keeps things, I think for me, it keeps things really clear having it due on receipt. Remember to bill regularly, and also to address past due accounts promptly so that things don't just build up. Don't procrastinate on your fee agreements and bills. Get your paperwork taken care of really well, really smoothly. And if you haven't been in business before, just try to imagine what you would think a really well-run business would do. Try to just put yourself in that place.
Remember to specifically describe the services that you're going to provide. I mean, that's one of the biggest things. How much is it going to cost and what I'm going to do for you? And she's right. One of the most important things is when people don't pay, what happens? You're going to talk about your right to withdraw, and then your right to collect against these people if you have to. And you need to make sure all that stuff's spelled out. Go overboard with fee agreements, if anything. Discuss. I try to. Mine is 3 pages, and it's a conversation. I mean, it's conversational. I mean, I talk about myself and you and what I'm going to do exactly and what's going to happen if we hit certain circumstances. And you can't control for everything, and we know that. I mean, you never know what's going to happen. But you need to be as clear and as transparent as possible.
Yeah, and you can reach out to other attorneys for examples of their fee agreements. If I was going to send out my fee agreement to another attorney, if they wanted to see what it's going to look like, I'd say, here's my fee agreement. Do whatever you think is right, but here's what I do. So you can always ask other attorneys for stuff like that, and they may not give you their fee agreement, but they might talk to you about what they include. And attorneys are much more collaborative, I've found, than I don't know what the law schools are like here, but my law school was extremely competitive, and there was no way any other law student was going to share anything with another one. Attorneys who practice law and are outside of law school are much more collaborative than I would have thought when I was in law school. Real quick, the trust accounts. I'm not going to go into huge detail about this because, for one reason, one thing is that I don't use trust accounts. The kind of law that I practice doesn't really lend itself to trust accounts. And we have a great resource in Washington. If you ever get the chance to see Ann Gwynn speak, she's very clear and concise about trust accounts. She's also great on fee agreements, and she has a really good understanding of how they work. There are a couple of different kinds of instances where you would use a trust account, and a lot of attorneys have trouble understanding how those work, the different examples, and she does explain them very clearly. When you do decide to set up an IOLTA account, make sure that the bank that you're working with is listed as an approved bank, and that list is on the WSBA website. Also, make sure that the person you're talking to at the bank knows what a trust account is and is familiar with them, because trust accounts require a special kind of setup with banks. They have special kind of paperwork that they use when they set them up. Do you have anything to add to?
Nope.
And the rules for trust accounts are RPC 115A and B. Okay. Okay, so some of the things that I found with my own law practice and my past experience in corporate is that, you know, I've mentioned it before, but networking is really the key. Even if you have a job and you're happy with where you are, just always try to be networking with people outside of where you work. Look at the kinds of hobbies and interests that you have as a way to meet other people who aren't attorneys, so that you really have a diverse network of people. And remember that if you're working in Seattle or wherever you're working, that it can be a pretty small community with lawyers. And once you do start developing your network, you're going to see people that you know all the time, and people will know who you are, especially if you're active. And I think the last thing is just if you have time, and even if you don't have time, I really highly recommend getting into doing some pro bono work. It's really key to having a well-rounded career, and it's another way of meeting other attorneys, and it's a good habit to get into. So, yeah, unless anybody has any questions, I'm going to let Doug go ahead.
All right, does anybody have any questions? Okay. I just saw the 10-minute card, so I'm going to move quickly because I want to give you guys some time to. No, that was me. I want to give you guys some time to answer some questions or ask some questions. Us answer some questions. Okay, managing your persona. She talked about some of the things you're going to be doing in the business side, but you also have this public image to uphold, and it's important. Not only, I say why. It's not only for yourself. Welcome to Bushwood. Have you ever seen Caddyshack, Bushwood Country Club? It's the finest country club in the land, right? That's how we perceive the Bar Association. We're a collection of attorneys. We're very proud of what we've created. Our profession is very dear to us. And the image that it gets, the image that we portray is that we're a professional, ethical organization out there for the best interests of our clients. And some lawyers drag that down. Some lawyers make that that is exactly their position. So you got to remember that your public persona not only affects who you are and your firm, but also the Bar Association and the entire group of attorneys. So add that pressure to you. Who needs to manage a public persona? Well, I think everyone does. Does anyone in this room think that for some reason you don't need to have a public image because of the work you do? Is there anybody in here? Yeah, I agree with you guys. I mean, even if you're a pure transactional guy, and I've met pure transactional guys that you couldn't Google their name. I mean, the only Google response you're going to find is maybe their lawyer directory name, and that's it. Even then, I mean, how do they get clients? How do they build notoriety on their practice? How do they look for jobs in the future? Public image is not just there just to get clients. I mean, I'm very active online for many reasons. I mean, I like to be involved with the Bar Association. I like to speak. I like to talk about issues in my practice areas. And I like to get clients. Who doesn't? So I think everybody needs to work on their public image and needs to know what it is today. It needs to know what it's going to be in the future and know how to manicure it. How? Transparency, gumption, and drive. Well, I think the most important thing is transparency, because most everybody who's going to look at your public image, whether they be clients or potential employers, they're gonna Google you. They're gonna try to find out who you really are as a person. Because when you sit down at that desk and you do that client or the client interview or the employment interview, there's a lot of skepticism on the other side that you're putting on a face, putting on a hat. You know, so know that, especially with technology these days, transparency is key. Because you are very transparent anymore these days. Gumption and drive obviously go together. You need to be innovative. Think about finding your niche in the practice of law and have the drive and commitment to get it done. So let's take baby steps, because I'm not here to teach you guys to be a 10-year seasoned vet. I'm not a 10-year seasoned vet, but I tried to take baby steps when I came out and became a lawyer. There's three things, I think: connecting, becoming a resource, and the newest one is sharing. I think a lot of older attorneys that have been around the practice for a while, connecting and becoming and being a resource were really two of the biggest parts of their public image, and sharing is kind of new. I mean, technology allows us to do that. I'm going to try to go through these kind of quick. Connect. All right. WSBA, ABA, the Young Lawyers Division, our practice area sections, get involved. Okay, that's a no-brainer. People should know that. These are professional organizations that are experts in your field. I have gained enormous, my public image has doubled since I was involved with the Bar Association. I've got probably twice the amount of speaking opportunities. I've gotten clients, and that's pure fact. So those are no-brainers. What I like to talk about is finding your trade. I could do an entire CLE on this, narrowing your practice area. A lot of you guys in here, I listened in the beginning, a lot of you guys don't know what you want to do. You don't know where you're going to work, and you don't know what kind of law you want to practice. Find something you love. I mean, it's as easy as that, or that you're good at, and narrow it. And, you know, general practice still survives. There are a lot of people out there that still work in general practice, but for young lawyers especially, it's extremely advantageous to have a narrow practice area that you can become the expert or an authority on, or that you feel comfortable always speaking about. Finding your trade means finding that narrow group of people that are going to be involved and connecting with them. For me in construction, it wasn't just construction lawyers. I'm not just going to go to the construction law section meeting 2 times a year and shake hands with construction lawyers. They're probably not going to give me many clients, to be honest, because they do exactly what I do. But I got involved with the Master Builders Association. I became a lead accredited professional, and now I'm Cascadia Green building professional. I'm one of the, there's a handful of us. The Associated General Contractors, I help them with policy. Reach out beyond just your legal field. These people are not only people you can that can be clients for you, but they are resources. When you get involved in the case and you don't understand the engineering on a massive commercial building that just got built, you need an engineer. And sometimes it's nice to know them because you've already built a network of them. Find the experts. The best thing at the beginning of our booklet for our section was the best resource to a lawyer is a lawyer with more experience. I couldn't agree more. A really short story. When I left the firm that I was a partner of and decided to start my own practice, first thing I said was, I'm going to do what I love. I love craft beer. I really do. I'm going to be a brewery lawyer. And I'm going to start a niche practice in this. And this kind of goes back to this lifestyles of practice constraints. And I want to get into it later if we have more time. The first thing I did, the day I decided that, I decided that morning, within an hour, I Googled, found the guy that I thought was the biggest expert in Seattle on beer law, that it had an expertise, and I emailed him. Quick email. Hey, Bob, I'm Doug. I'm going to start a practice in beer law. I'd love to take you out to lunch and talk. He responded in an hour. Seasoned attorneys, they put a lot of time and love into what they do, and they're proud of what they do. And sometimes they are more than happy to sit down with you and talk. Progressive and inventive, I just put those on there because I want you guys to think about the fact that we're youthful. You know, you have a long future ahead of you. Think about, your practice is always evolving. It's always changing, every day. And always think about new ideas and new topics that you can become involved in, that you can be, you know, the head of the niche on. Being a resource. In the past, we had to look for law reviews, publishers to publish our articles. It was very difficult, especially to compete with people that have 30 years experience. Web 2.0 came around, and now anybody can start a blog, right? So I have 3 blogs. One for brewery law, one for construction law, one for general law management. I get thousands of hits a month on my blog. People think I'm an expert. I don't know if I am. I feel pretty good about what I'm putting up there. But blog, share, be yourself. You know, anybody can tell you about anybody can talk about court opinions that are released. I subscribe to the Washington Court of Appeals websites, and they send me opinions as they're issued. I just blog about them. Say, hey, here's something interesting for my clients that they might want to read. I'm going to skip ahead to fear and loathing. A lot of young attorneys are really afraid to get involved. They say, there's people out there that know more about me. This is a big step for me, and I really just don't have the time. If you have any knowledge of technology, it's pretty easy to get involved and to get started in this stuff. And skip down to share. This is our moderator, Eric Kessler's Avo page. Avvo makes it easy. I'm not here to promote Avvo. There's plenty of websites out there. There's Avvo, Plaxo, LinkedIn, LawLink, Facebook, Twitter. Technology makes it very easy for us to share things about ourselves, things that we do. An Avvo profile says, look, Eric's a 10.0. He's superb. He's got 7 client reviews. So this tells us that clients like him. Clients like his work. Other attorneys, he's got 7 endorsements. Other attorneys like his work and believe in him. He can share legal guides that he's published. He can share his blog articles. He can answer questions from potential clients out there that are informative. He can share his speaking opportunities, how many times he's spoke before people, or the cases that he's worked on. So it's easy. Sharing is a good start. You can start slow, and you can do it with caution. You need to, my recommendation to you guys would be to just find a platform that works for you. Many of you guys may already work on a platform. You may already have Facebook or Twitter. Make it professional. Find a way to share information and to have this public persona. And the thing you got when you're doing this, you're going to have to think about ethical traps. And luckily, our next presentation, we're going to be discussing that, and you'll get a little bit more information about it. But the law is your friend. Share it. When you're a lawyer, I mean, it really is. I mean, it's the way to have a persona. Here's one of my blogs. Very easy to do. Lower right corner is about a court opinion that was just issued. Lower left corner is about a piece of legislation that just failed. The top is just one statute. I wrote an entire article. There's no sources. I mean, I link back to the statute, but I didn't have to research and find case law or anything. I'm just stating simple facts. But these are extremely helpful to my clients and to people in the industry. So it's not too difficult. But as you think about building ahead, and I know I'm completely out of time, so I'm sorry. As you think about building ahead, I only have one more slide. I want you to think about today. Do you already have a public image? Because I would bet, how many people in here use Facebook? Every hand? Is it every hand? Is there anybody that doesn't? Okay. How many people use Twitter? Yeah. MySpace? Blogs? Bloggers? One blog or two? Okay. Where is it? You know, I just asked you questions. Everybody just said, I have a Facebook. Well, great. You have a public image. You're transparent. People know who you are. You're on the web. Know that. Does your image that's being portrayed right now, does it meet your professional goals? Who knows? There's good and there's bad. The good is the transparency. People build trust. Hey, I've thrown myself out here. You can find everything you want to know about me. Okay? You're social. You're meeting new people. You know, you're exposing yourself to clients, to opportunity, to potential jobs. And you've already built this existing network. That's great. If you guys have had Facebook I've had Facebook for 8 years probably. I have a huge network of people that I know. I mean, anybody can be a client or a potential employer or a potential business partner down the road. But what's the bad? If you were like me when I was working at a firm and I was trying to focus on 100% construction law, I was a little concerned about my passion for craft beer. Some people are. I wasn't. But it was something I had to think about. Being social. Sometimes loose lips sink ships, right? Sometimes you guys every day, you sit around, you probably talk about what you're doing today. I ate lunch at Juan. I had some Japanese food at Juan today with Jimmy, and we talked about Initiative 1082. Well, in the future, being social could run afoul of professionalism because maybe you have obligations of confidentiality with these people that you're talking with at lunch. You got to think about those. And those ethical dilemmas, I mean, those are the type of things that are going to come up with Mary Jean and I are going to converse next about ethics and professionalism. But do not fear, we are here. Fiona and I are very willing to discuss anything you guys want to talk about in the future. If you guys have fears, troubles, problems, email me. I had great people that were there for me when I decided to be a lawyer and to run my own practice, and I'm more than happy to pass that down. So feel free to email me.
We'll give you guys a couple minutes for questions here, and we'll just take a couple minutes of Mary Jean's time. So any questions real quick, and then we'll hopefully be around at the break too to answer questions. So any quick questions?
When you were starting your, I guess I could direct it to either one or both. When you were starting your independent practices, did you invest a lot in advertising, you know, in the beginning and then phase it out?
Actually, that was one of the things that I sort of skipped over a bit, and that's investing in your practice. That's a great question because you have to be careful not to over-invest in your practice or under-invest. And I took the route of sort of feeling things out a bit first. I wasn't sure exactly what area of law I wanted to get into, so I didn't advertise. In fact, I still don't advertise at all.
And I don't have any paid advertising, not one thing. My advertising is my Web 2.0, you know, what I put out there on the internet. I mean, having a blog, being involved on Twitter, speaking opportunities. I mean, that's free advertising, and I take advantage of that. I mean, I really do as much as I can. Never turn a blind eye to opportunity when it's there. I mean,
you can start a Facebook page. I have a Facebook page for my law practice, a website. But your advertising, what I've found, is really through other people, face-to-face advertising.
Be a good lawyer. It brings business in.